Welcome to the MoxStars podcast. I am Menace, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Flesh.
Yep.
What is up, dude?
Nothing much, man. How are you?
I'm doing exceptionally well. I might yawn a couple times throughout the opening of the show because it's kind of early. I overslept. Oh, but yeah, I'm doing well. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today is a big one. It might be a long episode. It might be short. We aren't really sure. Today is the Bloomburrow set review, and we're going to go through each color and then break down the cards that we find interesting, give them a ranking, and then, see how you feel about it. If you feel differently about the way we talk about cards, make sure you leave a comment below on the YouTube channel, or you can reach out to us on Discord. That being said, if you'd like to support the show, you can like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications on YouTube. You can find us on all major podcasting platforms, where you can leave us a 5-star review, and we'll look super duper cool. And then you can also join the Discord server, where the community is growing, and we're talking about, we'll be talking about this episode once it airs. And then you can support us directly via Patreon, where you can become an official Pepperhead. For $3 a month, you can support us and get one free entry into each of our bi-weekly giveaways, which we'll be announcing what the prize this week is at the end of the episode. Or you can become a cherry vanilla Pepperhead, like Will Rule, K Mr. K, UWP Quirt, D Mun 82, Tommy Cypher, Jacob Hibbard, and Josh. Woo!
Oh, Josh is in the mix now?
Yeah. Josh is a cherry vanilla Pepperhead. What a baller, right?
Shit. Yeah, very baller.
Yeah. And
by the way, speaking of Dr. Pepper, I'm drinking a Olipop Dr. Goodwin right now. It's like, it's not good.
No, I've seen those before. And I haven't had one because I'm too afraid to betray the doctor.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. But if you've ever wanted a Dr. Pepper but worse, Dr. Goodwin has you covered.
I can't even imagine, like, something that's so great and wonderful in this world, someone has recreated it but worse. Is it like, have you ever had Dr. Thunder?
No, I haven't. But you know what it tastes like? And you probably haven't had this either, or maybe you have. It tastes like Diet Faygo.
Okay, no,
like not even regular sugar Faygo. It tastes like Diet Faygo.
There was
for all the juggalos out there listening.
I remember when like Faygo first hit the shelves. Like this is like when I was a kid. Maybe it's older than that, but I remember when it first came to the Quick Trip near me, and I was just like, why would I buy Faygo when I can just have Dr. Pepper, the original? I'll spend $1.29.
I was suspicious of it because it was cheaper than store brand soda.
Yeah.
Like,
that really
that's the sign of quality when it's cheaper than the store brand.
That's
like, what are they trying
flags.
to get past us?
Yeah. That was their mistake. They were like, we don't value ourselves enough. So that to me was a red flag to be like, well, I don't value you then, Like,
yeah,
come on.
Why am I in the 1990s paying 5 cents for a liter of this soda? That seems suspicious. Is there lead in here? Is there heavy metals runoff?
That's so true, man. It was like 50 cents for a bottle. All right. The other benefit of being a patron is that we are running weekly surveys as well. So you can check out our Patreon here. This is our homepage on YouTube. You can find these surveys, and this week's survey is our patrons are voting for our next cEDH breakdown. So we have a list of commanders here. You can vote on one. If you would like a say in this, just make sure you go support us on Patreon. You can cast your vote, and next week's episode will be the results of this poll here. The result of last week's poll help us choose our next batch of tokens. I have the results here. we'll be working with Death Milk Designs on a Clue, Blood Token, Food, Monarch, and Day and Night token. So super stoked. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone out there who participated in that and is contributing to the show. We love you. Thank you so much. And I was going to set a marker here that currently our membership totals are at, just want to refresh and make sure here, they're at $39 a month. If we can make it to, let's say, $150 a month, I will commit myself and the show to doing live tournament coverage. So if we can get there to $150 per month, that's when we'll start doing tournament coverage. That'll give me enough to be able to step away from a day at work and go do an event. So let's see if we can get there. Please praying. I have my praying hands together right now. Let's try and get there for the show. So
what's the math? How many off are you?
So we're at 40. We're roughly $40 with 11 total contributors right now. So we would need we need about 60 contributors.
Okay.
Yeah. And right now we are at 192 subscribers on YouTube as well. So all of you who are listening via podcasting platform or if you're a YouTube subscriber, we have 192 of you guys. Pop on over, support the show, and let's get some tournament coverage going. So, all right. Bloomburrow. It is happening. I feel like there's two parties to this whole thing. There are the people who are woohoo! And then there are the people who are not looking at it at all. People who hate the vibe, hate the setting, and this set is really well designed. Honestly, like from a player standpoint, this set screams fun, intuitive. All the mechanics look like they work really well together, and there's some new things that like Offspring that bring new dimension to, I guess, how we play. And then there's also a few different things like consider tokens more heavily. I think that's a direction the game is going, is like, hey, you have these tokens, this effect helps you copy tokens more effectively, and blah this, blah that. So today we're going to be talking about the cards that interest us the most, and sort of expanding on them. If there are any cards you think we missed, again, let us know. But Flash, are you ready to dive in and see what we got going on here?
For sure. Let's go.
All right. So we're going to start with white here. And the first card that I had on the list was actually right at the top. It is Biza, the Bounding Spring. Biza the Bounding Spring is a 2/2 white legendary elemental elk, a 4/5 that says when Biza the Bounding Spring enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. You create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. Draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. So this is a card. We've seen effects like this in the past where, well, you know, it's white's sort of way of playing catch up. I think that's kind of how white has been structured in the past, and how this card sort of embodies that. Is this isn't pushing you any further ahead than your opponents. This is just catching you up to them. So, Flash, what do you think about this card right away? First impression.
It is a smuggler's share type trap.
Absolutely. That is absolutely how I feel. So I've given this card a 4 out of 10, and it's not for well, the only reason I'm giving it a 4 where it would otherwise be like a 2 is because if an opponent controls more lands than you and you do find a way to flicker this, you can still create a treasure token, because that's the one thing that you will not be able to catch up on. It doesn't allow you to search your library and put a land on the battlefield, so you'll never actually catch up in lands, but you'll keep creating treasure tokens. So, that's one thing that I saw as an upside. Maybe this has a place in Constructed, but I guess from we'll be like rating a lot of these cards through the lens of Commander mostly. But this is just like you said, Smuggler's Share, if you are not familiar, is one of the worst cards ever made in Magic. It's absolutely awful. It's an enchantment that says at the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn, then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under this turn. So a conditional effect that rewards you is supposed to reward you for things that happen commonly throughout the course of the game. Now, Biza, on the other hand, says, well, if you've just been doing nothing all game and you played land, and you went second and you played a land again and then played Biza, you might get the full... You're probably not going to get the draw card because you haven't been playing cards. So you might get 2 fish and gain 4 life. That seems like to me the most common outcome is you get 2 fish and you gain 4 life, and that's what this card does. So 4 out of 10. This is kind of indicative of the of how powerful white is in this set. Because this is the strongest card. And not to say it's the best card, but this is where the Mythic design space is at for white at the moment. So, Flash, any final thoughts on Biza?
No, I don't even have first thoughts on it.
Yeah, kind of sucks. Great way to start the MoxStars set review for Bloomburrow. Next, we're going to be talking about an instant called Perch Protection from the set. Flash, have you seen this card yet before I read it?
What color is it?
It's white.
Well, that answers your question.
Yeah.
Let me try to find it now.
All good. So Perch Protection is from the Commander set. Now, this is...
Okay.
Yeah. So this is... We'll be talking about both Commander and Standard set, but this one is that type of effect that Commander players like to see, but for 4 and 2 white, so 6 mana instant. This says you can gift an extra turn to an opponent, and if you do, you create... Well, it says create 4 2/2 blue bird creature tokens with flying. If the gift was promised, all permanents you control phase out, and until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. And then exile Perch Protection. So for 6 mana at instant speed, late in the game, you can give your opponent the game. You can say, hey, I would really like for you to win. That's what this card to me says. But you're creating 8 power and toughness worth of birds, and then you're giving your opponent an extra turn, and in return you phase out as if Teferi's Protection had just resolved. But you could just have used Teferi's Protection instead for 2 and a white. And that sort of sums this up. This is when I'm rolling through the cards for this set for white, I'm kind of looking at how people are valuing them pre-sale in a way, because what people are valuing it at and are purchasing it at, it tells me how much how playable it is. And so, or how powerful it can be in a sense. So this is actually one of the more expensive white cards currently on the market from the set. And it is for me, a 1 out of 10. This is the worst card that I've seen that people would ever be willing to spend money on. Oh, God. Flash, anything on that?
No, it's also a bad card. I also don't think that in general Teferi's Protection is a great card.
Not when we look at like the greater scope of like cEDH, for sure. Where
Yeah, I mean it's a really good card. It's just not a card that I've played in a while, and definitely a 6 mana strictly worse version of that um is also not, to me, enticing.
yeah, I think if you watch like game nights and you like, they make sure the game goes to like 12 turns. Like that is part of their show, is they make sure that it goes for a long, long time. And so you see effects like Teferi's Protection in those games be dramatic and useful and like playable, where and I do believe that when the episode for Bloomburrow comes out for game nights, this card will probably be played because like they want to showcase some of these new commander cards, and it will be a dramatic monumental moment, and it'll help the person lose. I still believe it that it'll help them lose the game. So that being said, Purge Protection, don't waste your time. But there is one card in white that you can waste your time on, and I do believe is cEDH playable, and it is called Dawn's Truce. Now, Dawn's Truce is a 1 and a white instant that says you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. If the gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible until end of turn. And then it says you can gift a card. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast the spell. If you do, they draw a card before its other effects. Now, this just sounds like a 2-mana version of what we just talked about, but there is something else to it that if it might be glaring to you and you're just waiting for me to say it, but gifting a card at instant speed, it makes it cEDH playable. So forcing card draw is something that, like, when it comes down to a format that is not necessarily ruled by Thassa's Oracle, but ruled by effects that either exile your library or mill your entire library, is where this comes into play. If you don't have a lot of options like in white, and like sometimes you in like the effect of like you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn is still valuable. This is not the rate you want to pay for it, but the upside is that you have the ability to force card draw against decks that are focused on winning through Thassa's Oracle. So this is, to me, I guess that is where I see it is playable because it battles that one of the most commonly played win conditions in all of Commander, which is Thassa's Oracle. How do you?
Yeah, I mean, I find Baleful Mastery to be a playable card for the same reason.
Yeah, that is actually the exact like comp that I was thinking of when I was reading this card. I was just like, oh, this is White's Baleful Mastery. Doesn't have like the other like the other whatever attached effect to it or optional, reduce cost.
Destroy target creature or planeswalker.
Yeah. But this is White's version of that. Forced card draw is nothing to scoff at. And so I gave this card a 7 out of 10. And like for White, it's a powerful effect. Like in White, silence is a 10 out of 10, And so for it to be a 7 out of 10, like this does have value, and I do think this will be tested and played pretty often through the course of through the course of the next few months, just to see what its place is. But yeah, I really like this card. 7 out of 10. All right. The last white card that I want to talk about today in our set review is Parting Gust. It is 2 white mana for an instant that says you can gift a tapped fish, and then you exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. Now, this is a pretty cool card. It is definitely like a little bit limiting because of the color restriction, like 2 white mana. I don't think it makes it unplayable, though, because having the ability to basically unconditionally exile target non-token creature. This is a Path to Exile type effect without the upside, or without like giving them a land. And then if the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. Some of the most commonly played cards in cEDH are like Gilded Drake, are like that God, what was that? The name of the new Gilded Drake from Modern Horizons 3. But this will allow you to basically use this effect as either pure unconditional removal and give your opponent a tapped fish. You don't even have to give the opponent you exiled their creature the fish. You can give another opponent the fish, and then it is just gone. That creature's just gone. Or you can use it to repeatable enter the battlefield effects, or for protection, or for that like little +1/+1 counter synergy with, like, I don't know, Shalai Halar that could end up winning you the game. So like, I do see the upside, and I really think that this it's so tough to my rating on it is a 5 out of 10. Like, it's a good card, but it really tests the limits of whether or not it deserves to be tested in a competitive format, where I do see it being very, very playable in casual Commander, even in high power Commander. I think this is playable. Just when you get to that, like, when you take that next level and you are like trying to really refine a deck down to like every card having an impact, every card meaning something, like in pushing you towards the ultimate goal. Like, I just don't think this makes that cut. But this is a card that I want to put in. This is a card that I will put in decks that I take to MagicCon. Like, I think it is worthy of that. Like, to play with other people, have a good time. Parting Gust does that. It scratches that itch for me. Any thoughts, Flash, on Parting Gust?
No, it's a decent card. I mean, I would consider it in mono white for sure.
Yeah, I guess that is true. If you're playing mono white, which I think Elishnorn, like Mother Machine, still has a place in cEDH, where, like, if you were playing that, this allows you to repeat in ETB, and then also gets rid of things that you don't like. So cool upside. And Nils Ham did the artwork for this one, so another huge upside. All right, that is white. That is our review for the white cards here in Bloomburrow. So if you thought we missed anything, let us know. Or if you thought our take on certain cards was bad, also let us know. We don't want to be bad at things. All right, we are moving on to blue, where the first card we're going to talk about is probably the most interesting blue card in the entire set. It is something that people are speculating on, and I am confused, because 20-toed Toad has a lot going on. It is a 3 in a blue, so 4 total mana frog wizard. That is a 3/3 that says your maximum hand size is 20. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on 20-toed Toad and draw a card. Whenever 20-toed Toad attacks, whenever 20-toed Toad attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it, or you have 20 or more cards in hand. So there's a win condition. Like I just win the game if I accomplish this thing here. So
I think people just like anytime they see a reasonable alternative win con, right? You got to at least explore it.
Yes. So let's dive in a little here. How easy do you think it'll be to declare an attack with 20-toed toad with 20 cards in hand?
Man, I mean, in blue, there's lots of ways to get there, but like where my mind goes is what's the card Trisca Della File or whatever?
Yeah.
You win that says during your upkeep you win the game if you have exactly 13 cards in hand.
Yes.
So it's kind of the same problem because it's not like 20-eyed toad doesn't say when it enters, right? Just when it attacks. That win con procs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. I mean you have to get a lot of cards in hand. Step 1, which is achievable, but step 2 is you gotta you got to survive a play cycle because you're not going to play either of those a turn cycle because you're not going to play either of those cards unless you're planning to win the second it's able to proc, right?
Yeah, and there's like this,
and there's not a lot in blue that gives haste.
So it's a multicolor
I mean, I guess
thing.
you're playing Swiftfoot Boots, right, in this deck if you're building it.
Yeah, like if this is a win condition that you are like pursuing, you know, like for sure, I think that you want the protection, you want the haste attached to this. Like, I guess when I think about it, and I go, when you attack with 2 or more creatures, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Like there is the built-in the fun and like intention of this being on the board for multiple turn cycles, and like I no no, like if I'm sitting at the table and this thing comes out and it's not like anything that is an alternate win condition, regardless, it's just like, nope, the deck is built to make that happen. So absolutely not. We're not doing that here. This is one of those things where there's a huge, like, I think, and everyone is aware of the window of opportunity, which is why this card ultimately like croaks, is because,
hey, that's a pun.
Hey, it's a frog.
It's a frog. Hey. No, I mean, I feel like the natural way to win with this card is to drop it, enable haste on it, have all those cards in your hand, and win on the spot. But like the ways to get there are, I don't know, maybe you got to play blue-black, right? Because you want to add nulls or PETA.
That's
maybe
what I
to
was
get
thinking.
all those cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Maybe a giant Sphinx's Revelation or, you know, one of those type effects.
Like a Seagate Restoration or something.
Seagate Restoration. But at the same time, buddy, if you've got 20 cards in your hand and you're not already winning the game an easier way, like then enabling haste on a creature without protection on it, like I think you should win the easier way.
Yeah, the set, like as far as card design goes, I love when they have I love alternate win conditions. Because it's a challenge.
I would love to get smashed by this in standard or something, you know?
Well, this is purely commander set only. So
this is from the commander stuff.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So this is purely commander.
Even worse then, because I would love to get smashed by this in standard. That's where it might make sense. Or like Brawl, you know, one of those formats.
Yeah. I would say that if I lose to this, it is deserved. Like it is well deserved. And like I think that is where the fine line is drawn with like card and set design for Wizards of the Coast, is that more than anything, the idea is that we're creating a fun game. A game where like when the result is tallied, that all players involved had a good time. And this, like, for me, I have the attitude of I don't care how the game really, like, when someone wins, I'm not upset because I had my opportunities. I had my opportunity to mulligan. I had my opportunity to like, throughout the course of the game. So, this says to me that it's late in the game. They've earned it, and it is, like you said, if you have 20 cards in hand and you're not already winning, like, what are you doing? This just says, like, hey, you've got 20 cards in your hand. You should already be winning. Here, just have the game. Like, because this has been sitting out there for a while. Declare the attack, man.
Like,
get
if
that
you're
trigger on the
mono
stack.
blue and you forgot to include a win con, this card is here to be like, hey, by the way,
hey, buddy,
win now.
Yeah, you can just do that thing.
Yeah, I feel, yeah. This is it's a fun casual card.
Yeah. Yep. This is
it's a good card that's right next to it. I'm looking on Mythic Spoiler. Polywog Prodigy.
Dude, did you read my freaking mind? That is
no, I read the notes you sent me in a text last night.
God, you're too on the nose with it, man. Oh, I accidentally spelled Prodigy wrong with a J.
Ew, boy.
It wasn't with like the G. I just put a J on the end. My finger slipped. And it's just so everyone know I'm an astute speller. I won the 3rd grade spelling bee. And I lost the 4th grade spelling bee on a technicality. They didn't tell me which version of calendar it was, and I didn't bother to ask. And that was my fault as well. So I don't know. Maybe I still won. In my heart, I won. All right. I'm not stewing on it. You're stewing on it. Okay. Polywog Prodigy. Hello. We have another frog wizard on the scene. Flash, you want to give us a tour of the Polywog Prodigy?
Blue-white 1/3 evolve. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Polywog Prodigy's power, draw a card. This seems to me like to have a very high ceiling, and also a very high floor. Quite frankly, like, I think this is going to hit more often than Esper Sentinel.
Ooh, that is high praise. That is definitely high praise here. This is definitely a good card. I gave this a good rating. I'll wait to spoil the rating in just a moment. But
yeah, no, I mean, I know Esper Sentinel is super good, but we're
past that.
I feel like Polywog Prodigy is better than that, because like Esper Sentinel is a dead card late in the game. Polywog Prodigy, you drop this anytime in cEDH, even if you're not evolving it at all, you're still going to proc this, even late game.
Yeah, it's really, really good early game, though.
Even better early game. I mean, you evolve this once or twice, and you're drawing a card for every non-creature spell your opponent casts.
Yeah, I think
straight up.
Yeah, I think the twice, like once it's evolved twice, is when you really hit that mark. And I think we've learned over the course of time that Talion's favorite number is 2. And so as long as you can get over like 2, like if its power is 3, like hell yeah, there we go. Now we're cooking. So.
And I mean, you can get there because like it's got 1 power, and the way evolve procs is power or toughness greater.
Yes.
So there's tons of things that do that. Just even if like, let's look at just blue, right? What is going to do that in blue that you're already going to play? Displacer Cannon?
Yeah, like.
Yep, Displacer Cannon's a 2/2.
Yeah.
Whatever you flesh duplicate is probably going to have power or toughness that meets that threshold. I'm not going to include Thassa's Oracle because that's a 1/3, and also you should be winning at that point. But let's say Tishana's Tidebinder, 3/2, that procs it.
Yeah.
Talion, 3/4, procs it. Let me see. Let me try to find some other decks.
Yeah,
blue creatures.
One card that like people were saying like right away that I read on was Rafine, Scheming Seer, because it's a 1/4, and so its toughness is greater. Then it'll proc it, and then Rafine also says you connive for, attacking creature connives, and each or X times where X is the number of attacking creatures. So all you got to do is you play Rafine, it evolves once, you swing with it. You connive, discard a non-land card, and you're already at that 3. Like,
yeah.
So, like, it comes down, like, Rafine is a card draw engine on its own. And now that it has the ability to put +1/+1 counters on something that matters, that is going to proc even more card draw, like this is this is a really great fit for even like, I know you're looking at like commanders that include blue, but like even Tymna procs this. So like,
yeah,
you play this, and then you play Tymna. Tymna's going to make this a 2, and then play Crom later on in the, like even on the following turn, procs it again. Now we're looking at like, it is the thing that is the weakness is that it's a creature, so it is more easily removed, but
yeah.
it has. This is like,
No, I would play test this alongside Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora, just like as the third piece, the small piece. Like this might even be like, okay, I can keep an opening hand because I have Polywog Prodigy, and it's going to get me that card draw.
yeah, yep. Like I can turn 1 this, and like I'm second in turn order. I can turn 1 this. Odds are that turn 3 and turn 4,
it's going to replace itself at a minimum, even if they remove it.
Yes, like very early in the game, absolutely. So this is like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna raise my rating a little bit. I'm gonna put this at an 8 out of 10. I think this is.
Yeah, I think we just need to see it in action and see what happens with it. But
Mhm.
like, I think the ceiling is super high on this.
Yeah, that's the thing. The ceiling is super high. Like it stops win conditions like on its own, which is like the thing where a lot of things that happen in cEDH revolve around Underworld Breach. And so like, yeah, you're going to draw a card off of obviously every Lion's Eye Diamond that's cast. So like every time they cycle that through, you're going to get to draw a card, which gives you more options and more answers to be able to respond to the combo that they're on, like that is unfurling. And then you have also, like once you get it to 3, you're going to draw a card off of each Lion's Eye Diamond and then off of each Brain Freeze. Like, so it's like now you're getting 2 cards for each time the cycle goes through. So your opponents, I'm just gonna be straight up, don't like seeing that. They don't like going through their thing and then just like giving someone cards in a way that might give them an answer to what's happening. So Polywog Prodigy is going to be like a big target on the battlefield when it lands, like because you are going to see that it is going to draw, like you said, it's going to replace itself at the very least, and then as the game progresses, it is going to push that player to new heights. It is going, like if it does what we think it'll do. The big problem that I see is that a lot of decks that play blue, they don't really make room for creatures, and that's where like Blue Farm does, because they need card draw. Like it's creature-based card draw. But a lot of these blue decks don't make a lot of room for creatures, and so that's where this might get squeezed out. But the ceiling is incredibly high. All right. Last week, Flash went ahead and created a deck list for one of the mythics that is incredibly exciting because there is, well, a ton of mystery behind it. I don't know how high the ceiling is, but we're going to be talking about Illuge, the Shoreless Sea, next. We're going to expand a little bit more on the thought process of it now that we've got a firm grasp. And the mighty Gar returns to the show. So Illuge, the Shoreless Sea, if you're unfamiliar, is 1 and 3 blue. It has a star power and toughness. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of islands you control. Whenever Illuge enters or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. It's an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter on it. The first instant or sorcery spell you cast each turn costs blue or 1 less for each, or to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it. So we were sort of mulling through the options, and unfortunately I don't have the list up in front of me right now, but let's just sort of maybe double back on it and talk about it a little bit more. Flash, ever since you built that list, How have what have your feelings been on Illuge?
I think it could be it's a testable high power uh mono blue commander. I think because I think the relevant text box is the third text box, which is the first instant or sorcery spell you cast each turn, cost blue or one colorless less to cast for each land you control with the flood counter on it. And what you want to do there is just land Illuge early. And then you get free spells. You get 4 free spells a turn cycle probably at a
Yes.
minimum. And you know, the win cons there are, you know, the deck, as you say, blue decks don't play a lot of creatures. This deck would play just one other creature in the 99, Hullbreaker Horror, and you want to just polymorph into that, or until you can do that, just play a hard control scheme based on like back to basics, Torpor Orb, uh, you know, counterbalance, lots of control, things like that.
Yeah, like I absolutely agree because like not only can you build like a pretty stout like control shell around this, but you can build a really effective card draw engine just around landing Illuge early. So like some of the Christmas land scenarios that actually aren't super Christmas land at all, like as long as you're mulliganing appropriately, you know, like even if Illuge lands on turn 2, you know, it's like you're still getting quite a bit of value here. So you land on turn 1 by landing a Jeweled Lotus. We have to make sure that the land you played is an island. Otherwise, Illuge just dies. Like, I realized that after reading it. So if you play like a utility land and then you play a Jeweled Lotus, you crack it, pay the 3 blue, and then tap your utility land, Illuge dies on the ETB. So you need an island initially, but if it lands and it sticks, the first thing that you can do, like when it comes down to cEDH and when it comes down to like more powerful decks, like Brainstorm is the first card that comes to my mind where I'm like, oh, holy shit, you can just straight up Brainstorm the turn you'd get this and filter for more 1 mana things. This is a
and my thinking is that because you can just do that and you get to play your stuff for free and cantrip and filter and everything, it has pseudo protection because you can leave your mana up or not need to leave your mana up for, you know, counter spells for anything targeting your guy here, and then meanwhile just continue with your game plan.
Yeah, Strict Serenade, new from Modern Horizons 3. Swan Song, you can offer you can't refuse. Like there are
from this set into the Flood Maul.
Yes, which is a card we'll be talking about in just a second. No, I didn't put it on here, but it is a card worth talking about. Into the Flood Maw. Pulling it up now. Is a 1 blue mana instant that allows you to gift a tapped fish and then return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Yeah, I meant to include this. I don't know why I didn't, but it's... Oh, I did. Never mind. Haha. This is a really great card. Into the Flood Maw.
Great bounce effect.
Yep. Yeah, the gifting of a tapped fish is... It's nothing. This is like people have played Forbidden Orchard for a long time, giving people like creatures. I think there's been a little bit of pushback on it lately. Like you can play other utility lands, but like Into the Flood Maw, give them a fish. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like
honestly, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
What if a fish token is the like bonus card in our token drop?
Bonus cards? You're talking about bonus cards?
We're talking bonus cards.
Bonus cards?
You know Eli could make a sick fish.
Yeah. Like, I'm just trying to imagine it. That'd be pretty hot. With some nice teeth on it, like piranha, you know? All right. Into the Flood Maw. Great card. I think this does have a place in cEDH, like to bounce Smothering Tithe on a huge card draw, like to bounce Drannith Magistrate so you can go like go off, do your thing. The fact that it also like has a ceiling of any non-land permanent makes it huge. It's like push the
I mean,
Rage
I
back.
honestly don't care about giving that fish 99.9% of the time.
Right. There's nothing that, like, unless they're explicitly playing Birthing Pod and they haven't done anything yet, or they have Eldritch Evolution in hand, it's like, yeah, just give the fish to someone else. Like, you don't have to give the fish to the opponent that is currently acting their turn out. Like, that's the beautiful thing about the gift mechanic. So Illuge is the first time that we've seen an effect that allows you to reduce the cost of colored mana and or colorless mana. Like, and it doesn't say...
Yeah, I mean, that reduction is never dead. Like, a lot of time, like, let's say Sapphire Medallion, like, it just reduces by 1 colorless.
Yeah, and a lot of these effects, what they'll say is like, you can reduce it, but it can't go lower than 1. And it's like, no, this is just like, yeah, this comes down on the battlefield. You have free Brainstorm, free Ponder, free counter spells, free free counter magic available to you.
Yeah.
And then turn 2, when you attack with this, it's like, oh, now I have access to my entire suite of cards in my hand. Like 2 is the most commonly played mana value amongst decks. So I think this has legs. Like the list you sent was actually really great. So like you could turn 2 polymorph this pretty much no problem. Like,
yeah, because
you attack main phase 2, you now have 2 reduction on the spell. Guess what? You have 2 lands. The mana is there. You don't even need rocks. But like, there you go. You have the mana for polymorph. You polymorph for this Illuge into a Hullbreaker Horror. Hopefully you do have rocks, because that'll allow you to generate infinite mana. The one thing is, after that, it's where's the win condition. So you have to have some way to draw a ton of cards. I think there'll be a few X spells in this deck that allow you to draw X cards. Just because it helps eat into that cost. So this has a ceiling for sure. We don't know where it's at yet. It's a mystery. It's a mystery fish. But it is a Gar for sure. I'm resting on that. It is a Gar. All right. I'm so glad you built that list and sent it over last week. That was like the highlight of the episode for me. I loved that.
Boom. Glad to be of service.
All right. We have another blue card, and then we'll kind of breeze through this. We talked about it a little bit last week, but it is called Dour Port Mage, a 1 and a blue frog wizard. There are a lot of frog wizards that are really good here. Oh yeah, the Illuge rating. I gave Illuge a 6 out of 10.
Ooh, okay.
Because we don't know.
When I looked at it last week, that card was pre-ordering at $60.
Woo!
The basic treatment. I don't even know what it's at right now. So
maybe it's even better than we think.
Yeah.
All right. So Dour Port Mage. 1 and a blue frog wizard 1/3 that says whenever 1 or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. You can also pay 1 and a blue, tap, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. So the one thing here is that in cEDH there will be like instants and sorceries that are played that just say return target online permanent to its owner's hand for 1 and a blue instant. Now, this is a little bit limited, and I'm likening it to that because the reason that is played most of the time is for a Dockside bounce. So whenever you get Dockside out, you have one of those spells in hand, Chain of Vapor type effect or whatever, you bounce the Dockside back to hand because it can usually be mana positive. And get you...
Oh, did this card finally break Dockside? Are we gonna start drawing cards off the treasure tokens as well?
I wish. Not quite the treasure tokens, but I
mean, you know what I'm saying. In addition to the treasure tokens.
Yes. Yeah. So, Intruder Alarm with Dour Port Mage and Dockside is an infinite loop as long as you generate 4 or more treasures, and like, I feel like that is in fringe builds a viable combo. This is another Tamer Sabertooth that we're looking at here. Not only does it allow you to flicker and bounce and do whatever you want with Dockside, it also draws you a card every single time that you bounce the Dockside. So, or every single time you activate this card's ability, it says you're going to draw a card. So this is where I see this card has like huge upside, like combo potential. Wonderful. That's lovely. This is like, it also has a big booty. So like 1/3, it survives the Bowmaster, like, which is, I think we're seeing more cards that are being designed like for that reason, like dorks that have have 2 toughness just because Orcish Bowmasters exists. So Dowerport Mage 1/3 that has the upside of drawing a card for a repeatable Chain of Vapor type effect. And I think that this doesn't have as much of a place as like Polywog Prodigy, but if you're building around, or like I said, if you're playing some like fringe commander and you have the ability to go for a Temur Sabertooth type effect, this card can do it for you. Now it can't do it the turn it comes out, unfortunately, because it doesn't have haste, but regardless, it also has the upside of drawing a card. So I gave this a 7 out of 10. Not to the same heights of Polywog Prodigy, because Polywog Prodigy does things the instant it comes out. Like if it resolves and it lands on the board, it's drawing you a card most of the time, and I would say like 90% of the time. And then Dowerport Mage needs a full turn cycle around before you can resolve your combo or resolve the effect to bounce something. So I like it. It's pretty good. It's not the best card in the world, though. The next card we're going to talk about, last card in blue, and we'll try to pick up the pace a little bit. We have Splash Portal, a 1-mana sorcery that says exile target creature you control and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. If that creature is a bird, frog, otter, or rat, draw a card. Most of these cards that we're talking about are revolving around Dockside. Unfortunately, that's just how powerful the card is. So Splash Portal allows you to flicker Dockside, and then if it's something else that happens to fit the creature types, you can also draw a card. This doesn't quite make the cut for cEDH, but this does make the cut for like standard casual commander, because you're going to be able to repeat an ETB, and then also it's also a sorcery. So I gave this one a 4 out of 10, but I do think it is playable in Commander and is worth talking about because, well, repeating ETBs is valuable. So any thoughts on Splash Portal there, Flash?
No.
Okay. Into the Flood Maw, I rated it a 7 out of 10 for its upside with bouncing non-land permanents. Going
really,
into black.
I mean, I honestly, you keep calling that upside. That is just what the card reads as.
Yeah.
You don't care about the fish.
It has
the comparison is, let's say, the other 1-mana spells that you might play that give your opponent something, Strict Serenade, Swan Song, where you don't even care about the bird, and the bird is strictly better than the fish.
Yes, it is. I guess it's 2/2 as well. So, yeah, I would say that it has downside of just being able to bounce a creature. All right. On to black, we have Maha. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Maha. It's Feathers Knight, one of the strangest names to date. It is 3 and 2 black, legendary creature, elemental bird. It's a 6/5, so it has buffed stats. It also has flying and trample. Holy buff. All right.
And ward.
And ward. You have to discard a card if you want to target this card. Creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. Now, Maha might be the strongest card we've seen yet today. Now, it doesn't read like it does a lot, but oh my god, does it do a lot. It is that last
everything
line of
dies
text.
to Bowmasters.
Exactly. Like, this is a card that the instant it was announced started going into like maybe boards for 5-color cEDH piles, just due to the repeatable Bowmaster like triggers. So, like, remove anything with a Bowmaster. Like it's not that like Maha itself does a lot. What it does is it magnifies the power of the most commonly played pieces of removal. So, in the most commonly played piece of removal at the highest level of Magic is Orcish Bowmasters. We even see it in Vintage. Now, this probably won't see play there, but in Commander, when you have time to like resolve things or reanimate things, Maha is definitely going to see play and at least see testing for a little while we figure out how valuable creatures your opponents control having base toughness is. Like, does this warrant, like, if you're in 5 color, does this warrant like an Elish Norn? Like, does this like say your opponents just don't get creatures for the rest of the game as long as those two are on the battlefield together?
I don't think you play both together because you got a 5 CMC slot and now a 7 CMC slot.
Yeah, it would be reanimation. Kind of tough.
I mean, I feel like that's too much of the reanimator package. Like this, I think Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, if you were playing that, it definitely goes well with this card, and it does do that. I just don't. I think you're combining at that point 2 maybe cards and putting them in your deck.
Yeah, right. Like, because the percentage chance of picking up both of them and not being able to play either of them is actually like it will come up. Like it sounds like it's very circumstantial, but it'll come up. I promise you.
It'll definitely come up. I don't know. I feel like just reanimate something that will win you the game, or you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's where I guess like that is the effect is incredibly powerful. I gave this maybe too high of a rating. Like, the reason that I gave it so high of a rating is because the players I respect most in cEDH are testing it, you know? So, like, the instant it was announced, you know, it was like players like Atlas were immediately like, yes, give this a shot.
No, I think Maha itself is worth testing.
Yeah.
I just do you see players already combining it with Elish Norn?
No. That was just speculation. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just don't think I think that's too clunky at that point.
Yeah.
The card itself I would test.
Yes. Yeah. So it was the I guess in my brain I was just like, well, we play Living Plane alongside Elish Norn to completely, you know, but that destroys all lands as well. So yeah, maybe not enough upside with Elish Norn. But this is an effect, and it's pretty much the first time that we've seen something like this just flat out, like outside of like humility, bring all of your opponent's stuff down to a level. So this is just any -1/-1 across the board. Boom. This makes Toxic Deluge like that much better. Like 1 life, all of your stuff's gone, my stuff stays. Like type thing. It does make things very one-sided since it's an asymmetrical type effect. So, yes. Makes good cards better, makes your creatures and your opponents cry. So I gave it a 9 out of 10. We'll see what that means for the future. I guess in the scope of the set, it is definitely a 9 out of 10, but that is like ranking it up near like Rhystic Study type cards. So maybe it's an 8. Maybe it doesn't deserve to be a 9. All right. There's an entire cycle of cards called the Season of Whatever. These are the paw print cards that I had criticized on an episode ago or so. But the Black Season of Loss for 3 and 2 black sorcery, you get to choose up to 5 paw prints worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. I believe this, of all the seasons, has the highest floor. Like, it has a high floor, and it also has an incredibly high ceiling. For 1 paw print, each player sacrifices a creature. For 2 paw prints, draw a card for each creature you controlled that died this turn. And then for 3, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Now, I'm not going to liken this to some sort of Torment of Hailfire type effect, where you are always going to be able to go for that 3 and win the game. Like, that's very rare. I don't think they really make cards like that anymore, like Exsanguinate and whatnot. But this has the ability to make each player sacrifice 5 creatures. So for 5 mana, you can remove 15 to 20 creatures if there are that many present. Now, it doesn't have like the restriction of saying like non-token or token or whatever, but that is, I feel like that is still very substantial as a floor for what this card can do. The next thing is draw a card for each creature you controlled that died this turn. This is the little more circumstantial part. I don't think you're going to fire this off, wipe your own board, and then draw 2 or 3 cards. Like that doesn't seem very realistic to me. But it does have, I guess, card draw upside. But for the 3 paw print, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. This is where the ceiling starts to rise a little bit because you can play a lot of like mill strategies, self-mill, whatnots. That is going to make that X be somewhere in the 15 plus range if it's fired off at the right time. So that's where I think it has a high ceiling, but it also has a high floor. How do you feel about this, Flash?
Yeah, I mean, I just like modular card design. I feel like it's an interesting space. I usually, at least in standard, will mess around with modular cards. Man, what was that card? Like Inscription of Ruin, I think I used to play a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're testable for sure.
Yeah. This is like I gave it a 5. It's
that seems about right.
Yeah. It's casual commander playable, not cEDH playable, but it is like definitely going to have an impact on the game at casual tables. It's going to be what you dread to see actually most of the time when it comes up. And the artwork is super sick. Another Dominic Meyer banger. So if you're on YouTube and you can see it right there, wow. It is a wow card. The next card we're going to talk about is, this one actually has quite a bit of ceiling to it. This is from the Commander set. It's called Hazel's Brewmaster. For 3 and a black, you get a Squirrel Warlock. That is a 3/4 menace. Whenever Hazel's Brewmaster enters or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and create a food token. Foods you control have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Hazel's Brewmaster. Woo! I think Sam and Frodo just got, well, they're at midnight. They were at 6 o'clock, but they're at midnight now. And Hazel's Brewmaster has a really high ceiling for decks like that. So there's also this legendary mythic creature called Igra, Eater of All, in the set that turns all creature cards into food. So maybe when you're building that deck, this automatically slots in. But this has a very similar floor and a very similar ability to things like Agatha's Soul Cauldron, where when it enters, you exile a card, and if it's a creature and it has an activated ability, all foods you control gain those abilities. So the big thing here is that you can, one of your mana dorks died earlier in the game. Well, exile it. Your food tokens aren't creatures, but they do have that ability, so they instantly become mana rocks. Like, you don't have to put +1/+1 counters on those food or on the food in order for them to gain the abilities. This just casts this massive shadow over them and says, you have all the shit that I just exiled with. So I think like that's where this becomes sort of crazy, right? Where you can instantly activate abilities as long as you're creating food. So there has to be some sort of way to create a loop with this that I can't, in my smooth brain, I can't quite work it out right now. But
well, I mean, there's some ways to get there. I think you said Sam and Frodo. So if you look at Sam Loyal Attendant, activated abilities of foods you control cost 1 less to activate. So now you have cost reduction. So if you
Ooh.
exile some sort of mana positive rock that requires a cost activation, or and now the cost activation is 0, and now it's mana positive, or let's see, where else can we go with this?
Well, I think the direction is up, like regardless. That's why I brought it up, and even for 4 mana, like this is worth it every time, like because the build is likely centered around this type of ability. So, yeah, I am like, this is a mysterious card.
I mean,
I didn't
oh
even
man,
actually
speaking
give
of
it a
Sam,
rating.
Samwise Gamgee. There's stuff you can do here with Samwise Gamgee in the same deck.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield on your control, create a food token.
That's
Stack
good.
3 foods. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, there's loops here, right?
Yeah, because you can sack a food to create a food, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, well, you would hope. So you could loop with certain things like, like there are food creatures out there. So like gingerbread
for
is
sure.
one of them.
Yep.
So there are certain things, I guess, that you could do to like work that around. I wonder, like, because Cauldron Familiar and like it says like sacrifice a food to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. So like that's Samwise Gamgee and Cauldron Familiar is one of those cards that just goes infinite on their own. So I wonder if there's like the build around here, the potential seems really high. Like I was saying, I actually just neglected to give this a rating because I was so confused at the ceiling here with it. So just food. If you haven't been watching or playing Magic in the last 2 years, food is a thing, and it is strong. It's really strong.
They've really been building out that design space.
Yeah, and it's underrated still to this day. So like when Lord of the Rings came back around, food just got this massive like push forward, and then now with all of these sets, especially Bloomburrow, food is like, it's way better than its floor. Like the floor of food is, it's pay 2 mana, gain 3 life. Like that's really good in standard. But in Commander now, it has the ability of just like threatening explosive potential just by existing, where there's so many supporting cards that say, hey, you can use this food to do this thing. Great. That'll help me win the game. Like, that's like, and Hazel's Brewmaster, I'm going to say 7 out of 10, just because I can't think of like the combo loop that I would pursue right off the top of my head. It isn't obvious. But
guys in the Discord, figure this out. Like there is definitely space here.
Yeah. This is an enabler, and it's just like I said, my brain is too smooth to figure it out at the moment. This is a really great card. Next, we're talking about Osteomancer Adept. This is a 2 mana Squirrel Warlock, another one. That is a 2/2 Death Touch that says, tap until end of turn, you may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging in addition to paying their other costs. If you cast a spell this way, that creature enters with a finality counter on it. And this is the important text right here. To forage, exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sacrifice a food. If a creature with a finality counter on it would die, exile it instead. Now, this is where I gave this a really high rating. I think this has the potential of not... Don't laugh at me when I say this. It doesn't have quite the potential of Underworld Breach, but it reads a whole lot like Underworld Breach. Underworld Breach just allows you to cast anything, so that's why that card is fucking broken. But this allows you to basically Underworld Breach creatures repeatedly, like over the course of the game, as long as it's in tap. Foraging is escaping for 3 or sacrificing a food. So if you have the build around for food, that's great. Awesome. But you don't need the food in order to make this card busted. You just need to be able to play, I don't know, any type of Underworld Breach strategy. And this card will be effective at the when its ability activates. So until end of turn, you may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging, in addition to paying its other costs. That is, I just don't know how to explain how good that is. Like, for all the people who are out there reanimating, this is essentially repeatable reanimation. Maybe, you're still paying the cost, but it gives you access to a secondary set of cards. Like, a lot of people will say that the graveyard is just your second hand. It's information that is given, but this gives you access to that. It's not a hurdle to get around, to be able to forage, to be able to recast cards. So, Flash, any thoughts on this? Am I crazy?
Yes, but unrelated to this.
Okay. I am going to give this an 8 out of 10. Like, I think this could be one of those cards that, I think a lot of creature shells are already figured out in cEDH, so I don't know if it makes that, but it does really gets really close to breaking into that, yep, this is going in. This is going to enable my mill strategy. This is going to enable a few other things that I'm wanting to do, and recycling a few cards. Now, finality counters is the way that Wizards of the Coast is trying to balance reanimation, because the finality counter says that as long as if the creature were to die, you exile it instead, where you can still bounce it back to your hand and the finality counter will have just ceased to exist. It's I think there are a few ways around it that allows this to still be broken, and I think that the finality counter is their way of sort of capping the potential. But when we have access to all of the cards in all of Magic's history, I feel like there are ways that we can still break this. So, Osteomancer Adept, I really like the card. I think it has a really high ceiling. Let's move on to red. We are going to talk about Dragonhawk, Fate's Tempest. For 3 and 2 red, you have a 5/5 bird dragon with flying that says, and it's legendary, it says, whenever Dragonhawk enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. Now, the way this reads, it says that you can collect a lot of cards in exile and then deal a ton of damage at the end of it. That's not the case. I read into it. The ruling is that when it says those cards, it is explicitly referring to those cards from the trigger. So for each of those cards that are still exiled, because even if you don't play the cards are still remain in exile, but Dragonhawk won't see them if they're from the turn prior, if that makes sense. So
gotcha. It only counts what happened that turn. Exactly.
Or in another case, the thing is that Dragonhawk will still proc at the end step, even if it's not there. So there is a delayed trigger that happens. So whenever Dragonhawk enters or attacks, you're going to get this effect to exile X cards. So if you're able to flicker this a ton of fucking times, you will kill the table. That is the ceiling for it. So it can come in and that delayed trigger will still hit, and you'll get a massive amount of triggers at the end step for each card that you exiled this way, and you'll deal a ton of damage. So this is where I was thinking that this could be new Magda tech, where you can create or repeat this ETB maybe this is a new outlet for the combo that allows, is a little less known or something of the like. But yeah, this is still gives you tons of access to cards. So on top of it being an outlet for the combo, if for whatever reason you're interrupted at some point, this is still going to give you a lot of access to cards that you can play. So I think it's pretty good. It's probably going to be better in Standard than it is in Commander. Let's give it a 6 out of 10 right off the bat. I'm actually going to skip the next Commander card that I was doing. I was going to talk about Pyre Swipe Hawk, but that is a low-rated Commander card that I think is just sort of like fun. And go straight to Storm Splitter. For 3 and a red, it is a 1/4 with haste that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. I really like Polyraptor. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm a big dinosaur guy. This is Polyraptor, but it's an otter now, and it
Polyotter.
has Polyotter.
Don't Google that. That might lead you down some rabbit holes.
Some otter. No, that wasn't gonna work. Yeah. Rabbit holes indeed. Because whenever you cast, you're going to create a copy. Cast 1, you get 2. You cast another one, you're going to get split it again. You're going to get 4 of them, and then so on and so forth, which is the ceiling for this card. You can cast 3 spells, and then all of a sudden you have 12 or 6, 8. Yeah, cast 3, you have 8. So this is a mono red, I think, constructed bomb, where this is probably going to see play there. I don't really I wanted to talk about it because of that, not necessarily because of its contributions to Commander. I think in Commander, it's way too hard to string together storm chains, especially after you're trying to run a creature shell like this. It's really hard to put together card advantage storm chains that will ultimately result in spawning 80 of these and killing the table. Where in Standard, just casting 3, or even in Pioneer, this could be a Pioneer freaking house because of things like Arclight Phoenix. So, who knows? I wanted to mention it. I do think this is incredibly strong for Constructed and a really cool design space because they basically took Polyraptor and they cut the cost in half and they gave it, less power, but still the same ceiling. I don't think there's many ways to I obviously Polyraptor is one of those cards that when you see it, you just imagine the game is going to end in a draw because of its uncanny ability to duplicate itself. This one has a little bit more limitation to it. So, can
I go back to something for a second?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to. Maybe we can cut this into the Hazel's Brewmaster talk. But Hazel's Brewmaster entering exiles Nuka-Cola vending machine from your graveyard, a card from Fallout, which is an artifact that reads 1 colorless tap, create a food token. Whenever you sack a food, create a tapped treasure token. Let's say that enters, you exile Nuka-Cola vending machine. You have your commander, Sam Loyal Attendant, on the battlefield.
I've got
activated abilities of foods you control cost 1 less to activate. Your foods create infinite foods.
Well, I've got to stop you there.
What's up?
Because Hazel's Brewmaster says foods you control have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Hazel's Brewmaster.
No.
Yeah, no, I wanted it too. I wanted it. All right. We are moving on to green. Green is probably this is the strongest card in the set right off the bat. Let's talk about it right now. It is Bloodroot Apothecary. Green is really strong in this set. This is a Squirrel Druid 3/3 that for 3 mana, 2 and a green, that says it has Toxic 2 When Bloodroot Apothecary enters, you and target opponent each create a treasure token. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. This is from the Commander set. It is not standard legal. And holy 10 out of 10 do I love this card. It might not be as good as like my rating. It might not be a 10, right? Because that is the perfect card. That is the ceiling. What I like about this card, and what I think the reason why I think that it deserves such a rating is because it challenges the structure of the game that has been built. All things revolve around treasures. All things revolve around artifacts and loops, and like win conditions revolve around those things. So I think this gives green a new weapon to battle non-green like strategies that are like turbo strategies that focus on looping dockside. This is the dockside anti dockside thing, right here. It's right here. It's in our face. Bloodroot Apothecary. So not only you're giving you you and target opponent each create a treasure token. You are giving your opponent mana, but you're also giving them the means to their own destruction. So cards like Descent into Avernus become a little bit more playable. If you're unfamiliar with that, that is a upkeep trigger that has basically has an intensity counters that after each turn you put a counter on it, and then you and each opponent creates treasures equal to the number of counters on it, and then it deals that much damage to each player equal to the number of equal to the number of counters on it. So you could essentially give them treasures. You can crack 5, you can crack 4, and on that 5th attempt you die. That is what Bloodroot Apothecary does. So it creates quite a limitation indeed. This is a card that there are very few cards, actually it's just the one that make your opponents sack all of their treasures upon casting if they don't have a counter spell for it. And that one is Dockside. When you cast a Dockside, I'll crack all of my treasures in response. And I'm just to make sure that you don't get more. When you cast Bloodroot Apothecary, your opponents are likely to do the same thing. I will float all of my treasure mana right now. Not only are you denying them the opportunity for efficient mana usage and stuff like that, you're going to force them to have to use that mana in a way that they don't want to. That's what the Apothecary can do for you. This is a stacks piece in green that like I said, I think it battles the most popular lines of competitive strategy. So, any thoughts on this, Flash?
No, I think it's a good card. Hey, can we talk about Hazel's Brewmaster for a second?
Yeah, what's up?
All right. Your commander, Sam Loyal Attendant, is in play. Activated abilities of foods you control cost 1 less to activate. Yes. Hazel's Brewmaster enters. You exile Pippin, Warden of Isengard, from your graveyard, which has an ability which reads, 1 colorless, tap, create a food token. Your foods now can create infinite foods.
Okay. I am intrigued. What do we do with the food after we create infinite?
Well, there's lots of stuff you can do with food now. Food is a decent currency in the game, not as good as treasures. But, for example, if you also have Academy Manufacturer in play, your foods creating infinite foods create infinite clues and infinite treasures.
Infinite card draw.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I like that line. I think that line's way more achievable. You can set that up pretty easily. No, wait, I mean, this, I feel like there's more ways like to do it.
Oh yeah, no, that's just off the dome.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at my old Sam and Frodo deck that I put together when Lord of the Rings released.
Nice.
And that's the line that's in there, just adding Hazel's Brewmaster.
Yeah, that's hot. I love that. Hazel's Brewmaster, I think, is going to be something that like if it's cheap right off the gate, like which I think people are saying that
it's at $8 right now.
Yeah, like $8 for one. You could buy it now and it'll be $15. Like this isn't financial advice for anybody, but it is a card that I think will be driving strategies, whether you like it or not. So
okay, here's another line for the deck. So you've exiled Pippin, your foods create infinite foods. You've got infinite foods. Samwise Gamgee has an ability, sack 3 foods. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. You can loop some 0 cost, like loop Lotus Petal now for infinite mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Loop LED for infinite mana, any of those things.
I love it. Like I think Samwise Gamgee is definitely where the potential starts to like boom. How many pieces does it require to like really go off is my question. Like is it 3 pieces? Is it 4 pieces for the combo? Are we getting to like 5 plus? But if the deck is completely formed around it, I guess it's a lot easier to pull off than, just saying like, oh, it's a 4-card combo. But it's like, no, the whole deck is like formed around this like apothecary ceiling, or whatever, the brewmaster ceiling. So I like it. I really do like it. The last thing I'll say about Bloodroot Apothecary, the toxic squirrel, is that right now this is a card that what a beautiful card, first, and then second, this is a card that challenges the structure, like it challenges the foundation of modern Magic, and bump the camera, which is why I really like it the most, like out of all the other cards in the set. I'm also a big green player, so this, like, to me screams playable off the bat. It's also asymmetrical. This doesn't punish you for cracking like treasures or using the mana in whatever way you want to. You can create token copies of it, and so that whenever they crack a treasure, they get 4 poison counters. So there's a lot of different things like that you can do with this.
Do you play it over Manglehorn or in addition to?
Ooh. Yeah, that's just kind of the slot that it finds, doesn't it? Manglehorn just has the ability of destroying an artifact, which I'm gonna pull Manglehorn right away to like test this. Like, you gotta lose a few games to know if this is like worth taking up that Manglehorn slot, just because the upside of Manglehorn making sure that all artifacts come in tapped is, that's also severely limiting treasures. So yeah. I don't know. Do you give your opponents like the 4 mana? Can they make it work with 4 mana? Like, or do they just crack 1 treasure for a white, gain the 2 poison counters, and then path to exile this and move on with their lives? So that's where it's risky. But right away, I really like it. I wish it had Ward, but it doesn't, unfortunately. It'd be great if it had Ward, because it'd be like, do you want 6 poison counters? Ward 2, please? Do it. All right. Another card from the Commander set we're going to be talking about here in just a second is called Communal Brewing. This is a 2 and a green enchantment that, obviously, I like it because of the text on it. When Communal Brewing enters, any number of target opponents each draw a card. Put an ingredient counter on Communal Brewing, then put an ingredient counter on it for each card drawn this way. So whenever you cast a creature spell that creature enters with X additional +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of ingredient counters on Communal Brewing. So right off the bat, you don't have to give your opponent's cards. Like, it's going to get 1 counter on it immediately. If you're playing this in casual, you have the opportunity to proliferate. This is probably an Atraxa staple now, just because it comes in, it gives you 1, and then you can proliferate it, and then all of your creatures enter with 2, and then you can proliferate those +1/+1 counters on those creatures, and then the math starts to get really, really hard as the turns move forward. So another Atraxa Nightmare card has arrived on the scene. I like this because 1, it's an enchantment. I like enchantments quite a bit. I think they're super underrated. 2, it gives a +1/+1 counter. So this has potential to see play in like my Shalayan Halar list, because that creature will enter with a +1/+1 counter on it, triggering Shalayan Halar, and all you need at that point, basically, this is an enabler so that you cast your commander, you have Red Terror or Heliod present at the moment. You cast your commander, it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Trigger goes on the stack, Red Terror wins you the game, or you activate Heliod, giving Shalayan Halar lifelink, and then the game is over. So this is something that can sit there, and then all of your dorks get a counter. So if Shalayan Halar is out there and you don't have other things going on, this is still incremental damage over the course of the game. The more counters that are on it, the more damage Shalayan Halar will do. So I like it. It fits right into a lot of the niche builds that I like brewing up. It's also communal brewing. So I'm big on it. I think I gave it too high of a rating. So I'll dial it down. I think this is a 6 out of 10. I think this is stronger than casual cards normally are, and not quite to the point or to the level of cEDH, like standards that you would normally see. You build around it. I guess you could give an opponent a card if they're struggling. So like some sort of like politics, like, hey, we need interaction for this person. Here, take a card. Any card, whatever you want. Off the top of your library. Any thoughts on that, Flash?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, it's a great card. All right, the last green card we're going to be talking about is Season of Gathering. This is another one of those cards that has a great floor, also really high ceiling. It's a 5 paw print thing. This is 6 mana, though, so 4 and 2 green. You can spend 1 paw, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. So right off the bat, 5 +1/+1 counters, and potentially five different creatures gaining vigilance and trample until end of turn. For 2, choose an artifact or enchantment, destroy all permanents of the chosen type. So a board wipe. We don't see that very often in green. And for 3 paw prints, draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst creatures you control. This is so we used to have Rishkar's Expertise. That was an expensive card at one point. Got a bunch of reprints. Now it's super cheap. This has Rishkar's Expertise, half of it on there. That allows you to draw cards equal to the greatest power. No free casting, unfortunately. So how you spend your paw things here, you can buff a creature with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and that'll increase the amount of cards you can draw by 2 if you choose to activate the third one. I think the third one is probably the most valuable one out of all of the seasons of whatever. It's actually, I don't know. I think this one is on the same level as Season of Loss. So I will probably give it a 5, maybe a 6 out of 10. I think it's a good card, very playable in Commander, and has, card draw, board wipes, and fortification is what I wrote down in my notes. And I think that those are all things that green can generally struggle with at times, and you can do all of them with this card. So the next thing we're going to be moving on to are multicolor cards. And there are a lot of legendary creatures in this set. The first one we're going to talk about Not too many, but first one we're going to talk about is the infamous Cruel Claw. For 1, a black and a red. This is the Weasel that we talked about last week. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. It's a 3/3 with Menace, and it has an incredibly high ceiling. This might just be that new Eldrazi commander that everyone's looking for. This allows you to cheat the most powerful cards in the game, the most powerful creature cards. Actually, it's just non-land cards. So anything that you can come up with in Rakdos, this is a turn 1 commander that you can swing and then just have the most powerful cards in the game in your deck that you just have to discard 1 card to cast and have it land on the field. So there's a reason that the current pre-order price on TCG Player is around $35. This is kind of crazy. It's not new design space. I think we've all seen cheating like mechanics before. This one is no different. I think it's going to have a lot of place in Constructed, a lot of place in Commander, and be valuable across multiple formats. So, do you like it, Flash? Do you like the Weasel?
It's one of the best Weasels I've ever seen.
All right. Next multicolored card we're going to talk about as we pick up the pace here, try and close this out. We're talking about Zinnia Valley's Voice. This is one of the face commander cards, and it's not very often that we get a face commander card that has cEDH potential, but this is a blue, red, and a white Jeskai commander. There's a 1/3 with flying. It says it gets +X/+O, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1. Creatures you control, or creature spells you cast have offspring 2. So, right off the bat, the +X whatever is not really of concern. I guess it is upside for the card. It is a bird bard. But the real upside is that the offspring mechanic comes in here, where you can double up on ETB effects just by paying 2 additional mana. So, is Dockside good? Dockside.
I've been told.
Yeah, Dockside's a really good card. So for 2 additional mana, just by basically doubling its cost, you get 2 of them. That's pretty rad. It also has base power 1 on its own, so it does give Zinnia +2/+O just by casting and copying. So Offspring, if you're unfamiliar, is an ability that creates a 1/1 token copy of the creature itself. So this allows you, I think if you're consuming Magic content and you're watching CGB on Arena, he did a Satya build. Satya is a face commander from Modern Horizons 3. And that whole deck was built around copying some of the most busted ETB effects in the game, because that's what Satya does. This is that. And I think that it has potential. Satya requires an attack trigger. This is just having the additional mana to cast, and paying 2 extra. So I think this has a little bit more room where there aren't windows to really interact with it. Where Satya is before combat, I'll just kill your commander. You're not going to get the copy effect that you're looking for. Where Zinnia is just okay, I'll cast this offspring, with offspring. And boom, it is something that is already happening. There's no way to stop that. So I like the limitation there. Or I like the upside there. The limitation on Satya's just gives your opponents a window of opportunity to interact with it. So this actually looks like a commander that I would build. It looks like a lot of fun. Rating-wise, 6? I'm going to give it a 6. It's a 6 out of 10.
Okay. Build it. Find out if that's true.
Exactly. It gives me the same ceiling maybe as stuff like Xerus, where there's Xerus is wonderful. And I feel like that card has the ceiling. It can also be wonderful. The next multicolor card we're going to be talking about is Ral Crackling Wit. This is I think it might be the solo planeswalker from the set, but it is 2, a blue and a red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral Crackling Wit. It comes in with 4 initially. I like this as a constructed bomb. I think this is a Pioneer powerhouse, but you can +1, create a 1/1 blue and red otter with prowess. You can -3, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. That is probably the best effect, filling the grave. But the last effect is -10, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm. So it gives everything Storm. Like I said, I think this right off the bat is it Phoenix type planeswalker that'll come in and sort of enable the strategy that you're already going for. Be able to feed treasure crews, be able to put the phoenixes into your grave, and create otters if you're in dire need for board state or board presence to protect yourself. So this is a good card. I think it's one of the more powerful planeswalkers that we've seen in a little while. And the ability to put a counter on it just by casting a non-creature spell gives it potential, like, I guess, like, it doesn't even say instant or sorcery. It's just non-creature. So all of your artifacts can contribute to getting to that emblem, and which gives it room for growth even in Commander. So again, I really like it. The otter token's super cute too. The last multicolored card we are going to talk about today, and then we'll get into the last little bit. We have one land that I think we're going to talk about, and that's about it. But the last multicolored card is Bellow, Bard of the Brambles. We had to talk about at least one raccoon on the show today, and this one is probably the best one. It is 1, a red and a green. Gruul Commander is from the Commander set. I think this is the face of the deck. Raccoon Bard. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types and has indestructible haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Wah wah wee wah. I think commanders with card draw on it are pretty fucking good. And this is new design space, which is why I wanted to talk about it. This is a 4 or a 5. This isn't something you can play in cEDH, I'm sorry. But this is something that if you play it, this gives you a whole new room like to play in. Like, there are cards that now become viable. You know, it's like, just because they meet the requirements of Bellow. So during your turn, so these creatures that are ultimately created disappear at the end of the turn and are not targets for your opponents to deal with. Like, this has board wipe protection sort of like built in a way. And I think that makes for a really interesting commander. I am curious of what like artifacts you could build into this. You get like a Portal of Phyrexia, sure, I guess. And, you know, you could... there are also things like... I really like Nexus of Becoming right now, which is a new card from that Vault thing from OTJ. But it's a 6-mana artifact that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, draw a card. Then you can exile an artifact or creature from your hand. If you do, create a copy of that exiled card, except it's a 3/3 golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. So this is a card that I feel like sees play in Bellow just to help enable like card draw and putting more creatures on the board and all these other things. So I think Bellow is a really cool card, a really cool commander, and a really cool design space that I hope they expand on so that this card gets better over time. That being said, that is the multicolor discussion. Any final thoughts for you, Flash?
On multicolor?
Yeah. Any commanders that interested you from the set?
No, I think we kind of talked about them.
Nice. All right. The last card that I want to talk about for the day, and then we'll get out of here, get out of your hair. This is probably the most expensive pre-sale card from the set so far. This card is called 3-Tree City. It's a legendary land. As 3-Tree City enters, choose a creature type. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay to tap it, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. This is Nykthos Cradle, is kind of like the design space. There are a couple of limitations here where Nykthos will tap for devotion, and I think that's where that gets sort of wacky. It's currently one of the most heavily played cards in Pioneer, like Nykthos is, just because mono green has a lot of pips. And this is the best commander card that you could ask for casual players, where you're playing squirrels. Great. This enters. You're playing Chatterfang. Awesome. This is going to tap for a lot of mana. This is going to give you a lot of Chatterfang activations. So I don't know what the ceiling is.
I mean, it's in that Cavern of Souls type range, where it's just if you're on Tribal, why wouldn't you play this?
Yes.
Sorry, on Kindred.
My bad. Careful, we're gonna get us canceled. That's that is very astute observation you've just made.
So
but yeah.
What is this? A $50 card then? If that's what Cavern is about.
That's what people are speculating it at. That's the pre-sale price right now. I don't think it's worth that. I think that this is one of those cards that on its face reads really, really good, but it's a lot easier to turn off, than things like, I don't know, maybe it still has it's like Gaia's Cradle still, has the same limitations, I guess. You get rid of the creatures and it just goes away. It's just Gaia's Cradle isn't specific on creature types, and also doesn't have an activation cost. Oh man, I don't know. Nykthos is still better, and I don't know if this has the same ceiling that Nykthos does. So yeah, a 6 out of 10. I don't think I'd pay $50 for a 6 out of 10.
No, I mean, I'd be happy to pull one out of a pack, but
yeah.
Yeah,
this is a card that if you're just building a Kindred deck, this is perfect. This is great. This is the best card you could ask for. This is a huge upgrade for a lot of Kindred decks out there. I just, like you said, pulling it out of a pack is going to feel really good. Spending the amount of money that it's actually going to be going for on the secondary market, I don't think is going to be worth it. And this is we'll wait to see. I think this is even a card that the power level says that it could be reprinted in a commander deck and bring the value down quite a bit. This looks to me like a commander deck card that you're printing the next wave of decks, and one of them is Kindred, and so you decide that, hey, this card hasn't been reprinted in a couple years and it's $35. We need to increase sales on commander decks. Let's put 3-Tree City in there. That'll bring it down, that'll get people to buy the deck. That's what this card says to me. That's what this is. Once it rotates out of standard, it'll be in commander precons in no time. So maybe I'm a little too skeptical on it. Maybe it deserves higher praise than what I'm giving it. The most notable thing from this entire set is there aren't really any artifacts at all. It's mostly rabbits and bunnies and snakes and, well, there's one snake, and weasels. So Bloomburrow, like I said at the top of the show, I think you're on one of two sides. You're super excited. Woo! Bloomburrow, it's coming. Let's go. Let's go to pre-release. I'm going to a pre-release. I think it's going to be a fun set. Or you're on the other side where you're like, I don't want to participate in this. this gimmick and fun cutesy atmosphere that doesn't feel very immersive. I don't know. Like I said, I'm on the one side. I think it's pretty immersive. I think it's going to be a fun set to play limited. I don't know if it's a set that'll be cherished forever. But we don't know. We don't know. Maybe this will get a return. We'll get a return to Bloomburrow that makes me love it even more in a few years. But we'll see. Ultimately, Flash, any final thoughts on Bloomburrow as a set?
No, it's thematically coherent. Like the mechanics aren't too annoying, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, good to understand. I think Offspring actually has some legs. It's definitely useful for dockside, right? There's a lot of creatures where it's very useful to get an extra one for 2 colorless. Yeah.
Yeah, like
those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Offspring gets magnified by things like Mondrak and O'Hare Talk, where, like tokens are what they care about. And so you're creating multiple copies instead of just one additional copy. And the ceiling, like there are definitely supporting pieces out there to make Offspring better, make it a more powerful mechanic, which is, there's a lot of really cool things. Food is getting another bolster, and obviously that makes you happy. Like you were working with the brewmaster for a second there. Like the whole set feeds, if there's something you're interested in Modern Magic, the set feeds it in some way. It definitely scratches an itch for a lot of players. But like I said, there's just the other side of it as well, where it does nothing for some. So I think Bloomburrow, if I'm going to give it a rating, let's have a little fun with it. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10. I think this is a set that contributes to cEDH. I think it's a set that contributes more to Commander than it does constructed formats, but I think it still will contribute to the standard meta as we move forward to our first rotation since the change last year or 2 years ago, something like that. So we'll get to see all of our favorite content creators on Arena sort of figure out the ins and outs. But yes, Bloomburrow, really cool. Let's I'm done with it. I'm so tapped out on Bloomburrow. Oh, bunnies. All right. Oh, thank you. If you stuck around to the end of the show, that is the best possible thing you can do for us. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you would like to support us, you can do so by finding us on YouTube, where you can subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also join our Discord server, join the conversation, and let us know if we missed any of the cards that you wanted to hear about. And join the conversation on all the stuff that's going on there. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where you can leave us a 5-star review, and support us directly on Patreon, where you can become an official Pepperhead for $3 a month. To give you one free entry into our bi-weekly giveaways, which I will announce after we close the show. You can also become an official Cherry Vanilla Pepperhead for $5 a month, like Will Rule, K Mr. K, UWP Court, Demon82, Tommy Cypher, Jacob Hibbard, and Josh. And that'll get you 2 free entries into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. And if you're a patron, you can also support the show and participate in content creation by voting in our weekly polls, like deciding what our next batch of tokens will be, or this week, deciding what our next cEDH breakdown will be. So make sure you hop on there, help support us, get to that ultimate goal of doing live tournament coverage, and help the show ultimately boom and progress and move forward. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you, all of our Pepperheads out there, Pepperhead Nation. Dr. Pepper is the #1 soda on the market, obviously. We can't be dealing with knockoffs like Dr. Healthy Soda over there. What was that? What was the name of that soda you were drinking?
Dr. Goodwin, I think.
Oh, Dr. Goodwin. And as always, stay crispy, and we love you. Peace. Psst. Are you still there? Well, if you are, you stuck around to the end of the episode to figure out what this week's giveaway is. And if you're a patron, you're going to have a chance to win a MoxStars grab bag, including this MoxStars playmat. You're going to get a chance at a set of foil tokens. Whew! Not this many, but you're going to get a set of them. You're going to get a foil MoxStars sticker. You're going to get a Pepperhead can cap, and pretty much any other MoxStars like merch I got floating around here. I think I have a refrigerator magnet. That's going in the grab bag. Good luck to all you Pepperheads out there. Thank you so much for your support. We love you. Thank you. Bye.